The Arizona mountains in 1889 loomed like ancient sentinels, their rugged peaks cloaked in a stormy shroud of gray clouds and scattered snow, the rocky slopes descending into a vast expanse of red sand that shimmered under the faint light of a struggling sun. Eagle's Crest, a remote mountain pass cradled between towering mesas and windswept pines, trembled under the howl of a gathering storm, its jagged terrain whispering tales of survival, loss, and resilience amid the wild frontier. Caleb Reed trudged along the narrow trail, his wiry frame of 12 years stooped beneath a tattered shirt stitched with rough patches, his boots worn thin from months of wandering, his small hands gripping a gnarled staff carved from a fallen branch. His face, young yet hardened by hardship, bore a faint scar across his chin from a fall during a cattle drive, his hazel eyes carrying a quiet determination, an orphan since his parents perished in a raid, leaving him with nothing but a stolen horse, a rifle, and a heart heavy with unhealed wounds that fueled his restless spirit. He'd come to Eagle's Crest, seeking shelter from the storm, his canteen nearly empty, his stolen mare, Ember, struggling under the weight of his meager supplies after weeks of scavenging. The pass was a rare refuge, its solitude a stark contrast to the chaos of outlaw-ridden towns, its silence broken only by the whistle of wind through the pines and the occasional crack of thunder rolling down the slopes. As Caleb paused to adjust Ember's reins, a sound pierced the stillness, a faint, trembling call, barely audible over the storm, emanating from a rocky outcrop near the trail's edge. He turned, his hand instinctively on his rifle, and froze. There, perched precariously on a ledge, was a blind elder, his frail frame wrapped in a tattered robe of faded buckskin, his white hair whipped by the wind, his sightless eyes clouded with age, his gnarled hands clutching a carved staff for balance. His presence was a shock, a beacon in the stormy wilderness, and his plight stirred a memory his father, lost to raiders, a loss that had driven Caleb to this solitary journey. Caleb dropped from Ember, scrambling up the outcrop, his hands gentle as he steadied the elder. "I'm Caleb Reed," he said, his voice gruff but kind. "Can you move?" The elder, his voice weak but steady, replied, "I am Wovoka. Thank you. I was abandoned." With a grunt of effort, Caleb guided him down, supporting his weight, the wind tugging at them as they descended. Inside a shallow cave he'd spotted, the dim light revealed Wovoka's condition more clearly: frostbitten fingers, chapped lips, and a body shivering from the cold and exhaustion. Caleb stoked a small fire with twigs he'd gathered, using his coat as a blanket and melting snow for water, which he offered in a tin cup. Wovoka drank slowly, his strength flickering, his presence a disruption to Caleb's solitude. "Why help me, boy?" Wovoka asked, his voice hoarse but curious, his sightless eyes seeming to pierce through Caleb's soul. Caleb met his gaze, his scar itching under the cold. "Lost my pa once to raiders. Can't leave you to die like that." Wovoka's lips tightened, but gratitude flickered in his expression, a reflection of a life shaped by wisdom and survival. As the fire crackled, Caleb shared his last crust of bread and a sip of water, offering it to Wovoka. "Eat," he said. "It's all I've got." Wovoka accepted with a nod, his hands trembling as he ate, the act forging an unspoken bond between them, a thread of compassion in the storm. The next morning, as the storm eased and the sun struggled to break through the clouds, the pass's quiet, shattered hoofbeats approached, not with the menace of raiders, but with a steady rhythm that spoke of purpose and numbers, stirring the snow into a cloud of dust. Caleb grabbed his rifle, Wovoka rising with his staff, and peered out to see them, a vast throng of Apache riders, their faces painted with earth tones, their spears, bows, and horses glinting in the pale light, led by a tall woman with a commanding presence. She dismounted, her buckskin dress adorned with faded beads, her dark hair tied back with a leather strip, her face lined with the strain of leadership, her brown eyes meeting Caleb's with a mix of gratitude and wariness. "I am Kaya," she said, her voice steady. "Wovoka is our elder. Thank you for aiding him." Caleb lowered his rifle, his heart pounding, found him stranded, brought him in. Kaya stepped closer, her hands steady as she knelt beside Wovoka. "Raiders attacked our camp, left him to die in the storm. We've been searching for him." She embraced the elder, relief cutting through the frost on her face. Caleb's mind raced. Raiders meant trouble, and this woman's arrival with the tribe confirmed it. "Stay," he said, the word slipping out. "You're safe here." Kaya's eyes narrowed, assessing him. "Why take us in? Boys like you often flee." Not help, Caleb shrugged, his scar prickling. Lost my family. Can't turn away yours. That afternoon the pass buzzed with quiet activity. Wovoka ate sparingly from a plate Caleb prepared, his strength returning, his presence a lifeline to Caleb's isolation. Kaya tended the fire, her hands skilled, her people unloading gifts a herd of horses, their coats gleaming, even in the weak light, tethered nearby, along with blankets and dried meat stacked outside like an offering. We can't stay long, Kaya said. Raiders hunt us led by Hawk. They seek our wealth. Caleb's stomach tightened. Hawk's name was a curse, a bandit who plundered Apache lands, his greed a shadow over the mountains. What wealth? He asked. Kaya hesitated, then revealed a small, intricately carved horn, its surface etched with symbols. A tribal relic. It guides to our hidden gold. Hawk killed for it. The revelation hit Caleb like a gust. Such relics were coveted, a lure that had ruined men, but Wovoka's life and his people's safety were worth more. I'll protect you, he said, his resolve firming, though doubt gnawed at him about the horn's power. As the fire crackled, hoofbeats echoed in the distance, growing louder. Caleb grabbed his rifle, Kaya rising with a spear, Wovoka clutching the horn. Shadows loomed 3 riders, their coats dusted with snow, their hats marked with Hawk's gang insignia. The leader, a burly man with a scarred face, dismounted. Reed, he barked. That elder's ours. Hawk wants him back. Caleb's jaw tightened. He's free, he said, his rifle steady. Ride off, or we fight. The man laughed, drawing a pistol. You're a dead boy, kid. Wovoka moved with surprising strength, his staff striking the man's hand, disarming him. Caleb fired, his shot grazing another rider's shoulder, sending them scattering. The third fled, shouting threats. Hawk'll burn you out. Caleb lowered his rifle, his heart pounding. Kaya's eyes met his, a flicker of respect breaking through. You didn't have to, she said. Caleb wiped frost from his brow, his scar itching. Ain't right what they did. I've got my own ghosts. They settled in, the tribe's gratitude a quiet bond. Kaya offered Caleb the horn. For your kindness, she said, and a warning. Hawk plans an attack. The mountains stretched vast, their icy silence a promise of more trials. But Caleb's act of mercy had ignited a spark, a family forged in cold and peril, with Hawk's wrath looming on the horizon. As the tribe began tending the horses, a flicker of hope stirred in Caleb's chest, though he knew the peace was fragile. The Arizona mountains unfurled like a rugged tapestry of snow-capped peaks and shadowed valleys as Caleb Reed, Wovoka, and the Apache tribe led by Kaya ventured away from Eagle's Crest, the pale dawn casting long shadows across the icy trails. Caleb led the way on foot, his tattered shirt stitched with rough patches clinging to his wiry frame, his worn boots crunching through the frozen ground, his gnarled staff serving as both guide and weapon, his stolen mare Ember tethered nearby with the herd of horses gifted by the tribe. His face, young yet hardened by hardship with a scar across his chin, bore a mixture of determination and unease, his hazel eyes scanning the rugged terrain for signs of Hawk's outlaws, a quiet resolve battling the weight of his past orphanhood. Wovoka walked beside him, his frail frame wrapped in a tattered robe of faded buckskin, his white hair now dusted with snow, his sightless eyes guided by Caleb's hand, his gnarled hands clutching the intricately carved horn, a relic of his people's heritage. Kaya followed, her buckskin dress adorned with faded beads, her hands carrying a spear, her tall frame exuding a leader's protectiveness, flanked by a dozen Apache warriors, their faces painted with earth tones, their horses and weapons glinting in the weak light. The journey to a hidden Apache valley near Thunder Pass, a 2-day trek, was their goal, but the mountains held other trials to test their fragile bond. Their water was scarce, the canteen they'd salvaged from Eagle's Crest reduced to a few icy slivers, their supplies dwindled to a strip of jerky and a handful of dried berries Kaya had foraged. The cold bit deep, its chill a relentless adversary, the silence broken only by the crunch of snow, the snort of the horses, and the distant echo of a mountain eagle soaring above. Caleb's mind churned with the previous day's events, his impulsive guidance of Wovoka, the arrival of the tribe with their horses, the threat of Hawk. He'd helped the elder to ease his own guilt, but their presence now drew danger, a price he hadn't foreseen. He offered Wovoka water, a gesture of goodwill, his hand trembling slightly from the cold. Wovoka accepted, his sightless eyes narrowing. Why risk this for me, boy? He asked, his voice weak but wise. Caleb met his gaze, his scar itching under the frost. Lost my pa once to raiders. Can't leave you to die like that. Wovoka's lips tightened, but gratitude flickered in his expression, a reflection of a life shaped by hardship and trust. Kaya and the warriors walked with a quiet dignity, their buckskin garments rustling softly, the horn catching the pale light. Kaya shared their story as they moved, her voice low and resonant. Hawk's outlaws raided our camp, stole our goods, killed many. Wovoka was left to perish. We've tracked him since, fearing Hawk's greed. Wovoka added, his tone grave. He seeks this horn. It guides to our gold. A young warrior, Tala, muttered. He'll stop at nothing. Caleb's heart sank. The horn was a magnet for death, a lure that had ruined men. But Wovoka's life and his people's safety were worth more. I'll keep you safe, he said, his resolve firming, though doubt gnawed at him about the relic's curse. Their progress halted at midday when they reached a trading post tucked into a snowy pass, Snow Hollow, a haven for outlaws and wanderers. Caleb needed supplies, his stores depleted after the tribe's arrival, but Wovoka tensed. Danger here, he warned, his voice a whisper carried by the wind. Caleb nodded, his rifle ready. Inside, the air was frigid, the stench of unwashed bodies and stale liquor thick. A trader named Jed Carter, a wiry man with a patchy beard, leaned against a crate, his eyes narrowing. Caleb Reed, he said, heard you took in Apache runaways. Hawk's offering a bounty. Caleb's jaw tightened, his past with thieves flashing. Mind your own, Jed. Carter smirked, his gaze on the horn. $200, says I tell him where you're headed. Kaya's spear flashed, striking Carter's arm, forcing him back. Speak, and you bleed, she hissed. Caleb stepped forward, his rifle aimed. Walk away, Jed. This ain't your fight. Carter paled, retreating, his laughter echoing. Hawk'll hunt you down. Caleb cursed under his breath. Carter's treachery would lead Hawk straight to Thunder Pass. We move now, he said. The tribe's respect grew, their trust a tentative thread. You're brave, Tala said. Caleb shook his head, the weight of his past pressing down. I've been a thief. The ambush came at dusk. Hoofbeats thundered through the snow, and 4 of Hawk's men, led by a scar-faced rider named Red Jack, surrounded them near a frozen outcrop. Hand over the elder boy, Red Jack barked, his rifle raised. Caleb fired, his shot grazing Red Jack's arm, sending him staggering. Wovoka threw his staff, striking another's shoulder, while Kaya's spear felled a third. Caleb's second shot dropped a rider, the outcrop falling silent save for the wind's moan. The 4th fled, shouting threats. Hawk'll burn you out. They took cover behind the rocks, bandaging minor cuts, the cold seeping into their exhaustion. Kaya's eyes met Caleb's, her suspicion easing. You fight for us, she said. Caleb wiped frost from his brow, his scar itching. Ain't right what Hawk did. I've got regrets of my own. Wovoka nodded, his pain surfacing. He killed my grandson for this horn. Caleb's breath caught. The relic was the key, a prize worth killing for. We'll keep it safe, he said, his resolve hardening. Their bond deepened as they rested, Caleb sharing his canteen, Kaya offering berries from her pouch. Why carry that horn? He asked. Wovoka held it up, its symbols glowing faintly. It guides to our gold, a gift from our ancestors. Hawk wants it to claim our land. Caleb's heart ached, his losses echoing theirs. I lost my folks to raiders, stole to survive since. Tala's gaze softened. We're all scarred then. Maybe we heal together. The night stretched ahead, the mountains vast, but the threat of Hawk grew. Caleb taught Wovoka to use his lasso, the elder's hands trembling yet eager, their partnership a lifeline. Kaya showed him Apache mountain signs, their trust aflame against the cold's grip. You're wise, Caleb said. Wovoka smiled, a rare light in his sightless eyes. You too, son. The tribe watched, their kinship deepening, a family forged in the crucible of the mountains. But the peace was fleeting. Hoofbeats returned, closer now. Red Jack and his men, relentless as the frost. Caleb chose a defensible ridge, setting up with the tribe behind rocks. We fight if we must, he said, his rifle ready. Kaya nodded, her spear poised. Red Jack's men appeared, their rifles glinting. Last chance, Reed, Red Jack shouted. Caleb fired, his shot dropping a rider, but an arrow grazed Kaya's leg, drawing a cry. Wovoka shielded her, his staff a barrier, while Tala's spear felled 2, forcing the attackers to retreat. They bandaged Kaya's leg, Caleb's hands gentle. "You're all my family now," he said. Kaya's eyes met his, a warmth breaking through. "And you're ours." The mountains tested them, their icy trials forging a bond. But Hawk's wrath loomed larger, a storm they'd face together. Thunder Pass was near, but so was their reckoning. The Arizona mountains towered like ancient guardians, their rugged peaks cloaked in a swirling mantle of snow and mist, the rocky slopes descending into a frozen valley that shimmered under the pale glare of a midday sun, struggling to pierce the thick gray clouds. Caleb, Reed, Wovoka, and the Apache tribe led by Kaya pressed onward, the wagon creaking behind Caleb's steady hands, the gray stallion, Storm, and the gifted herd of horses plodding through the icy trails with a weary gait. Caleb's tattered shirt, stitched with rough patches, clung to his wiry frame with frost, his worn boots crunching through the snow, his gnarled staff serving as both guide and support, his rifle slung across his back. His face, young yet hardened with a scar across his chin, bore a determined set, his hazel eyes scanning the rugged terrain for signs of Hawk's outlaws, a quiet resolve battling the weight of his past orphanhood. Wovoka walked beside him, his frail frame wrapped in a tattered robe of faded buckskin, his white hair dusted with snow, his sightless eyes guided by Caleb's hand, his gnarled hands clutching the intricately carved horn, a relic of his people's heritage. Kaya followed, her buckskin dress adorned with faded beads, her hands carrying a spear, her tall frame exuding a leader's protectiveness, flanked by a dozen Apache warriors, their faces painted with earth tones, their horses and weapons glinting in the weak light. The hidden Apache Valley near Thunder Pass, their destination, was a day's journey, but the mountains held other challenges to forge their resilience. Their water was nearly frozen, the canteen they'd salvaged from Snow Hollow reduced to a few icy slivers, their supplies dwindled to a strip of jerky and a handful of dried berries Kaya had foraged. The cold bit deep, its chill a relentless adversary, the silence broken only by the crunch of snow, the snort of the horses, and the distant rumble of an avalanche echoing through the peaks. Caleb's mind wrestled with his past, his parents' death to raiders, his years of thievery to survive, a guilt that shadowed his every step. The presence of Wovoka and the tribe, a mirror to his loneliness, stirred a compassion he'd buried, their resilience a challenge to his wandering life. "We need to find shelter soon," Caleb said, his voice hoarse from the frigid air. Kaya nodded, pointing to a faint shadow on the mountainside. "There's a cave ahead. It might shield us," she replied, her Apache wisdom guiding them through the wilderness. The tribe's silence, broken only by soft murmurs and the occasional clink of weapons, hinted at their vigilance, the horn a burden they carried together. They reached the cave as the sun weakened, its icy overhang a fleeting mercy against the biting cold. Caleb checked the wagon, its wheels frozen and creaking, while Wovoka and a warrior named Tala scouted the entrance, their movements slow but determined, despite the chill. The cave offered a shallow recess, its interior frigid but sheltered, a rare refuge in the mountain's grip. Caleb melted snow for water, offering it to Tala first, his hands trembling from the cold. "Drink, friend," he said, the word warm with care. Tala accepted, his eyes softening. "Thank you, Caleb," he murmured, a rare nod breaking through his stoic demeanor. The moment was brief, but it deepened their bond, a thread of trust weaving through their shared struggle. The mountain's challenge struck at noon, a blizzard brewed on the horizon, a swirling wall of white snow that swallowed the sky, its roar a test of their endurance. "Get down," Caleb shouted, pulling Wovoka, Kaya, and the wagon into the cave's depths, the warriors and horses crowding in. The storm hit like a living entity, its force tearing at their clothes, snow clogging their cloaks and stinging their exposed skin. Caleb shielded Wovoka with his body, Kaya and the warriors huddling close, the tempest raging for hours, leaving them buried in drifts, their meager supplies buried under the snow. As it passed, the mountains revealed a new peril, an outlaw trap, a snare concealed by snow, its metal jaws glinting near Kaya's horse. Caleb reacted instantly, yanking the reins back, the trap snapping shut inches from the animal. Wovoka's quick thinking with his staff dislodged the mechanism, saving them. "Good save," Caleb said, his respect for them growing. Kaya nodded, her gaze steady. "The mountains test our heart," she replied. That night, they camped in the cave's lee, a small fire their only warmth, its glow casting shadows on the icy walls. The blizzard had delayed them, the valley still a day away, and Caleb's mind churned with guilt, his parents' murder, his years of theft, now this tribe's fight. Kea offered him a berry, her hands gentle. "You fight for us," she said. "Why?" Caleb poked the fire, his face shadowed. "I turned away from honor once my folks paid for it. Can't do that again." Wovoka's eyes softened, his pain surfacing. "Hawk killed my grandson, took our peace." The confession hung heavy, a mirror to Caleb's regrets. "Strength ain't just in survival," he said. "It's in standing together." Tala leaned against him, his voice small. "The horn protects our gold. Hawk wants it." Caleb's heart ached, his losses echoing theirs. "I lost my parents to raiders, stole since." Kaya's gaze met his, a warmth breaking through. "We're all lost then. Maybe we find kin." Their talk was interrupted by a rustle. Apache figures emerged from the snow, led by a stout woman with a painted face. "I am Nita, Kaya's sister," she said, her voice cautious. "We saw the storm. Hawk hunts you." She offered a water skin, her eyes on Wovoka. "You're alive, elder. We thought you lost." Wovoka reached for her, tears in his voice. "Caleb saved me." Nita nodded, offering Caleb a feathered cord. "You're kin now, boy." The reunion was brief but heartfelt. Nita's warriors, 15 strong, joined them, their spears glinting. "Hawk's tracker, Red Jack is near," Nita warned. "He plans an attack at dawn." Caleb's heart steadied, his bond with the tribe a shield. "We'll be ready," he said. Wovoka's hand found his trust a beacon. "You're my son," he whispered. The words warmed him, a redemption he hadn't sought. The peace shattered as the first light crept over the peaks. Hoofbeats echoed. Red Jack and 12 riders, their rifles ready, their intent clear in the pre-dawn gloom. Nita's men melted into the snowdrifts, leaving Caleb and the tribe exposed on the ridge. "Hold," Nita whispered, but Caleb stood firm, his rifle raised, the weight of the warning settling in. Red Jack's voice cut through the cold. "Give up the elder, Reed, or die." Caleb fired, his shot grazing a rider, but an arrow struck Nita's arm, drawing a cry. Wovoka shielded her, his staff a barrier, while Tala's spear felled too, forcing Red Jack to retreat momentarily. They bandaged Nita's arm, Caleb's hands gentle. "You're all my family now," he said. Nita's eyes met his, a warmth breaking through. "And you're ours." The mountains tested them, their icy trials forging a bond, but Hawk's attack loomed larger, a storm they'd faced together. Thunder Pass was near, but so was their reckoning. Thunder Pass loomed like a jagged scar across the Arizona mountains, its narrow ridge of red sandstone and snow-dusted outcrops standing defiant against the encroaching dawn. The pale light of early morning cast a silvery glow across the pass's rim, the air thick with the scent of frostbitten stone and the faint promise of a warming breeze as the storm's aftermath lingered. Caleb Reed, Wovoka, and the Apache tribe led by Kaya and Nita prepared for their stand, the tension palpable in the stillness, heightened by the warning of an impending attack. Caleb's tattered shirt, stitched with rough patches, was torn at the sleeve, his worn boots caked with ice and blood from his grazed arm, his gnarled staff and rifle poised, despite the ache in his muscles. His face, young yet hardened with a scar across his chin, bore a grim determination, his hazel eyes shadowed by the weight of his past orphanhood. Wovoka stood beside him, his frail frame wrapped in a tattered robe of faded buckskin, his white hair dusted with snow, his sightless eyes guided by Caleb's hand, his gnarled hands clutching the intricately carved horn, a relic of his people's heritage. Kaya followed, her buckskin dress adorned with faded beads, her leg wound bandaged, her hands wielding a spear, her tall frame exuding a leader's protectiveness, while Nita, her face painted with earth tones, carried a bow, her presence a steady force. The journey to this refuge had forged their bond, now tested by Hawk's ruthless pursuit. The pass offered strategic ground, steep drops for ambushes, snow-covered outcrops for cover, and a narrow ridge for traps. Caleb fortified a vantage point with Kaya's men, his hands calloused from years of survival, now skilled in war. Wovoka rigged tripwires with sinew, his movements slow but precise despite his blindness, his horn a constant reminder of their burden. The warriors assisted, stacking ice-crusted stones with Tala, their vigilance unwavering. "Hawk wants the horn," Kaya said, her voice low and strained. "He'll kill us for it." Caleb nodded, his guilt over past theft fueling his resolve. "We hold him here," he replied. Tala handed him a sharpened spear, a silent pledge of unity. The weapon's weight a comfort in his hands. Nita distributed spears and arrows, her warriors blending into the pass's icy shadows, their movements silent and deadly. Red Jack leads them, she warned. The attack is near. Caleb's heart steadied, his bond with the tribe a shield against the encroaching dawn. We fight as family, he said. Wovoka's sightless eyes met his, a flicker of trust breaking through his pain. You're my son, he said, his words a balm to Caleb's wounded spirit. The sentiment lingered, a redemption he hadn't dared hope for. As the wind carried the sound of approaching hooves, the warning now a stark reality. As the first light strengthened, the air grew taut with anticipation, the pass's silence broken by the crunch of boots on snow. Hawk rode in with 15 men, Red Jack at his side, the tracker's scar-faced grin a harbinger of violence. Hawk, a broad man in a black coat lined with stolen furs, dismounted and called out, his voice a thunderclap against the cliffs. Reed, hand over the elder and that horn, or this pass becomes your frozen grave. Caleb stepped forward, his rifle raised, his voice firm despite the cold. You'll have to take them over my dead body, Hawk, he shouted, his breath visible in the frigid air. The clash erupted like a mountain storm. Hawk's men charged, their rifles and revolvers spitting fire through the dawn. Caleb's first shot dropped a rider, the bullet finding its mark with a precision honed by necessity. Kaya's warriors struck from the shadows, their spears felling 2 more, their movements silent and deadly. Wovoka triggered a tripwire, a dynamite cache salvaged from an old prospector's stash exploding and sending a shower of ice and rock, scattering the attackers. But Hawk's numbers were overwhelming, and Red Jack's rifle was a relentless predator, his bullet grazing Caleb's side, drawing a sharp hiss of pain. Nita pulled him behind a snowbank, her arm wound, seeping anew. Stay alive, she growled, loosing an arrow that struck a man's chest, her aim unwavering despite her fatigue. The pass became a battlefield, its echoes ringing with gunfire and the thud of falling bodies. Caleb fired again, dropping another rider, the cold numbing his hands but not his resolve. Kaya's warriors fought with primal fury, their spears piercing the fray, while Tala and the warriors lobbed rocks, their forms a surprising force against the icy terrain. But Hawk's voice cut through the chaos. Wovoka, give me the horn's secret, or they all die. He held a pistol to Nita's head. The warrior's bow shattered, her eyes defiant. Wovoka's heart sank, the horn clutched tight. No, he cried, his voice raw with emotion. Caleb's mind raced he couldn't lose another father figure. He signaled Kaya's men to hold, his gaze locking with Wovoka's, a silent plea for a plan. Wovoka stepped forward, his stance frail yet defiant despite his blindness. Hawk betrayed my tribe, he shouted, his voice carrying over the wind. He sold our people to miners for gold, left us to die when we resisted. The revelation hit Caleb like a thunderclap. Hawk's greed wasn't just for the horn, but for the gold it guarded, a secret his tribe had protected for generations. Hawk laughed, his pistol steady. Then you all die with your lies. But Wovoka moved, shoving Caleb and Nita aside as Red Jack fired, the bullet tearing through his chest. He fell, blood staining the snow, his horn slipping from his grasp. Caleb, no, he roared, lunging to Wovoka's side, his hands trembling as he pressed against the wound. Kaya's warriors charged, their spears a blur, felling 3 men in a surge of vengeance. Tala struck with a rock, stunning a rider, while Nita's arrow found another's leg. Caleb tackled Red Jack, their struggle a tangle of fists and ice, until his staff crushed the tracker's skull, ending the threat. Hawk roared, charging with his pistol, but Kaya's spear pierced his shoulder, bringing him down. The remaining outlaws fled, their horses vanishing into the snowy dawn. Caleb knelt beside Wovoka, his hands stained with the elder's blood, his heart breaking as he tried to stem the flow. Hold on, he pleaded, his voice cracking with emotion. Wovoka's sightless eyes met his, a faint smile breaking through the pain. You're my son now, he rasped. Protect them. The horn is our future. His hand fell, his spirit slipping into the mountain's icy embrace, his sacrifice a final act of trust. Nita bound Hawk, her men finishing the fight, the pass falling silent save for the wind's mournful wail. Hawk was defeated, his men scattered, but Wovoka's loss was a wound deeper than the cold. Caleb cradled him, tears freezing on his cheeks, the weight of his words sinking in. Nita, Tala, and the warriors approached, placing the horn, a woven mat, and a carved arrow on his chest. "He was our father," Nita said, her voice thick. "Now he's with our ancestors." The Apache carried him to a pyre, their chants rising, a tribute to his courage that echoed through the pass. Caleb stood, his guilt eased by Wovoka's forgiveness, his promise to protect the tribe a new purpose. The pass smoldered, the air heavy with loss and victory. Nita offered Caleb a place with the tribe, and he nodded. "I'll honor him at the valley," he said, his voice steady. The journey to Thunder Pass had broken Hawk's grip, but Wovoka's sacrifice would resonate in the mountain's silence. Caleb's redemption was his, and the horn his people's legacy would remain guarded. The dawn broke over Thunder Pass, a fragile light spilling across the snow-dusted peaks, where the embers of Wovoka's pyre glowed like the last whispers of a fading star. The air was thick with the lingering scent of smoke and the crisp, icy aroma of the mountains, the vast Arizona wilderness reclaiming the battlefield with a quiet, unyielding peace. Caleb Reed stood at the pass's edge, his tattered shirt torn and dusted with ash, his worn boots planted firmly in the snow, his gnarled staff and rifle resting against a boulder. His face, young yet hardened with a scar across his chin, bore the weight of grief, his hazel eyes glistening with unshed tears, the guilt of his past orphanhood softened by Wovoka's final words. The intricately carved horn, Wovoka's strange reward, hung around his neck on a cord, a symbol of the kinship that had brought him to this moment. Hawk, bound and defeated, slumped against a rock, his outlaw reign shattered, his greed no match for the courage of an orphan boy and his adopted tribe. Kaya, Nita, Tala, Kono, and the Apache warriors stood nearby, their painted faces etched with both loss and pride, while the herd of horses grazed in the valley below. A testament to their gratitude, the Apache warriors, led by Kaya, moved with a solemn reverence, their faces mirroring the pass's rugged hues as they gathered around Wovoka's pyre. The flames had dwindled to a gentle glow, the snow around it melted into a ring of dark earth, a testament to his sacrifice. Kaya knelt, offering a prayer in Apache, her voice a deep chant that reverberated through the cliffs, honoring an elder who had transcended his role as a leader and father. Caleb watched, his hands trembling as he placed Wovoka's staff once his guide onto the pyre, a silent vow to carry his legacy forward. Tala, Kono, and the warriors joined him, adding a woven blanket, a carved arrow, and a bundle of herbs, their offerings a tribute to his courage. "He saved us," Nita said, her voice soft but resolute. "You kept his promise." Caleb nodded, the words a balm to his wounded soul, a redemption he hadn't dared to claim. The journey to the hidden Apache Valley began, the warriors carrying the pyre's remnants through the pass's snowy trail, its ashes a sacred burden. The path was treacherous, the ice cracking underfoot, the cold of the night giving way to a warming breeze that carried the promise of renewal. Caleb walked with them, his arm aching from the graze but his spirit lifted by their unity. The valley emerged a sheltered expanse nestled between towering mesas, its floor dotted with mesquite and a faint shimmer of a spring fed by an underground stream, now partially thawed by the rising sun. The Apache survivors greeted them, their faces etched with grief for Wovoka but warmth for his savior. Nita led Caleb to the spring, its waters clear and life-giving, reflecting the cavern walls adorned with painted symbols and woven mats a sanctuary. Wovoka had died to protect. "His spirit guards this place," Nita said. "You are kin." The tribe gathered around a fire that night, the valley's walls amplifying their voices as they shared tales of Wovoka's bravery. His gifts to Caleb his trust, the horn were now symbols of his legacy, their weight heavier than the gold they marked. They offered him a place among them, their eyes reflecting gratitude and hope. "You fought for him," Kaya said, handing him a woven mat. "Stay, and find peace." Caleb hesitated, his mind drifting to his past, an orphan driven to theft after his parents' murder, their loss a guilt he'd carried like a stone. Wovoka's words, "You're my son," echoed, his sacrifice a key to unlock that prison. "I'll stay," he said finally, "but I'll bring my strength to your valley. With your help." The days that followed were a blend of mourning and rebuilding. The Apache taught Caleb their ways, how to channel the spring's water for crops, how to weave mats from desert grasses, how to tend the horses with rituals by the fire. The tribe's children, including a young boy named Tano, became his shadows, their knowledge of their elders' traditions complementing Caleb's survival skills. They constructed a small adobe home near the spring, its walls rising under their hands, a fusion of Apache resilience and Caleb's craftsmanship. The mountains, once a place of solitude, became a bridge between worlds, their silence broken by the tribe's laughter, the whinny of horses, and the trickle of water, a stark contrast to the lonely peaks he'd known. One evening, as the sun set, painting the valley in shades of orange and purple, Caleb stood at the spring's edge, the carved horn a constant reminder. Tano and the children joined him, holding a new blanket, a carved staff, and a leather bridle crafted by the tribe. "For us?" Tano asked. Caleb nodded, his eyes misting as he handed them out. "Your grandfather would want you to have them," he said. Tano smiled, a rare light in his young face. "He gave us a home," the sentiment lingered, a bond forged in the crucible of the mountains, strengthened by the promise of a herded legacy. The tribe celebrated with a feast, their songs filling the valley, Wovoka's name woven into the melodies. Caleb learned his story in full, how he'd led the tribe through Hawk's raid, how he'd hidden the horn to save their gold, how his spirit now watched over them. His past, his failure to honor his parents, his years of thievery faded against Wovoka's forgiveness. He wasn't just an orphan anymore, but a guardian, a son to those he'd once failed. Kaya approached, offering a carved wooden flute. "Lead with his spirit," she said. Caleb took it, his hand steady. "I will." Weeks later, the valley thrived, its spring nourishing new crops, its people strengthened by Caleb's aid. The tribe, true to their promise, began the journey back to Eagle's Crest, bringing materials and hands to restore Caleb's lost trails, transforming the rugged pass into a symbol of renewal with the herd of horses grazing freely. He rebuilt his life, the tribe's help a lifeline, their stories a balm to his loneliness. Wovoka's staff hung above the new home's door, a shrine to his sacrifice, its wood a silent witness. The mountains stretched vast, their snow-dusted peaks a testament to their fight, but they were no longer a place of solitude. Caleb's redemption was complete, not in gold, but in the family he'd found: Kaya, Nita, Tala, Tano, the tribe all bound by Wovoka's legacy. As the sun rose over Thunder Pass, its golden light bathed the valley and the distant silhouette of the restored pass, a promise of a new beginning. Caleb stood at the home's threshold, the wooden flute at his side, the carved horn gleaming. He was no longer just an orphan boy who'd offered guidance, but a son to an elder whose courage had saved him, whose horn had turned peril into a legacy of strength. The mountains whispered his name, and Caleb carried it forward, a herded legacy born from the ashes of sacrifice, with the promise of a restored home anchoring their future.